The church that I grew up in, the one that my grandparents founded, had these beautiful stained glass windows of the most popular Marian apparitions lining the chapel walls. These Marian apparitions are a staple in all trad Catholic households. And we all heard the stories of these Marian apparitions growing up. We would pray to each apparition as if each apparition was a different saint. Like Our Lady of Fatima, pray for us. Our Lady of Guadalupe, pray for us. Our Lady of La Salette, pray for us. I've done a few videos on Marian apparitions already, 2 on Fatima and 2 on Guadalupe. I guess I'd call those videos broadly skeptical, at least of like the supernatural parts of the story. Last week, I set out to write a script about Our Lady of La Salette, and so I started doing some real research. But I became dismayed pretty quickly, because I found out that Jimmy Akin made a broadly skeptical video of the apparition of Our Lady of La Salette 4 years ago. Let's talk about it. Tons of the best publicly available information about anything tangentially related to Catholicism can be found in Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, which is coming up on 300 episodes. Congratulations in advance for that, Jimmy. But 4 years ago, Jimmy Akin put out episode 60, aptly titled La Salette Apparition. The episode is more than an hour long, and frankly, there's nothing for me to add to that episode to Jimmy's case for the non-authenticity of the La Salette apparition. So instead of trying to be original or like add anything to Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World episode 60, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to just briefly summarize the La Salette apparitions, why I agree with Jimmy that they're not authentic, and then I'm going to just add a little bit of like why I think it's so popular, like in trad circles, La Salette in particular, and just kind of Marian apparitions as a whole. Brief summary. In September of 1846, 2 young French shepherds, Melanie and Maximin, saw an apparition of a lady who was crying and told them a whole bunch of things. The next day, they told their parish priest about it, and the parish priest had them interviewed, and he wrote down everything that Maximin and Melanie said, and the priest was apparently moved to tears by the things that the 2 children told him that the lady said. That's kind of it. That's like the whole apparition story. There's no like public miracle with this one, like Fatima. There's no like relic like the tilma of Our Lady of Guadalupe. It's just 2 kids who claim that they saw an apparition and that Our Lady spoke to them. So why doesn't Jimmy think that this one is authentic? Well, for one, Our Lady gave Melanie and Maximin prophecies, and those prophecies just didn't come true. Maximin and Melanie each had their own secrets given to them by Our Lady. Both of these secrets contained prophecies. There was some overlap. There was a little bit of uniqueness between the 2. But something that they share is that they both failed. So it seems like most apparitions of any religious nature are very vague with whatever predictions accompany those apparitions. Think about Fatima. The 3rd secret of Fatima was so vague that the Vatican itself considered it fulfilled by an unsuccessful assassination attempt on a pope, even though the 3rd secret contained the death of not just the pope, but like a ton of other people. But La Salette is not like that. La Salette is actually very precise. Precisely wrong, but precise. Jimmy Akin says all of this in Mysterious World episode 60, more charitably than I do, of course. But even better, Jimmy links to the original language of the La Salette predictions. It's actually on the SSPX website. You can see that up here. It says Society of St. Pius X, District of Asia. And this was actually published all the way back in 2003. Feels a little weird going to the SSPX website, but here we are. It's actually a good resource. So if you just scroll down a little bit, you actually see scans of the original letters written by the priest who wrote down Maximin's and Melanie's story, I believe. But then the original broken French, because it's like a dialect of French. Even it's not like real French. Along with the English translation, is presented for both. It starts with Maximin's secret, and then it moves into Melanie's secret down here. So we're going to start with Maximin's secret, and I'm going to read it out loud, and I'm going to emphasize a few pieces. So let's start with Maximin's secret. Our Lady said, "If my people continue, what I will say to you will arrive earlier. If it changes a little, it will be later." So a little bit vague on when this stuff is going to occur, but don't worry, they do specify later. France has corrupted the universe. One day it will be punished. The faith will die out in France. 3/4 of France will not practice religion anymore, or almost no more. The other part will practice it without really practicing it. Then, after that, nations will convert. The faith will be rekindled everywhere. A great country, now Protestant, in the north of Europe will be converted. By the support of this country, all the other nations of the world will be converted. Before all that arrives, great disorders will arrive in the church and everywhere. Then, after that, our Holy Father, the Pope, will be persecuted. His successor will be a pontiff that nobody expects. Then, after that, a great peace will come, but it will not last a long time. A monster will come to disturb it. All that I tell you here will arrive in the other century, at the latest, in the year 2000. At the latest, in the year 2000. Remind me what year it is again? Oh, that's right, 2023. And does 2023 come before or after 2000? Oh, after. Okay. So do you think that we've had any great period of peace since this apparition in September of 1846? So that's, this prediction had 150 years to come true. And it hasn't, right? Let's take a look at some data. I downloaded tables from Wikipedia of just all of the conflicts that started between 1850 and 2000, and I got this table. It has over 1,200 entries. So I filtered to only conflicts that lasted for 5 years or longer, and only to conflicts that have ended so that there's no ongoing conflicts. And I still got 190 conflicts. I graphed them to see if there was any obvious period of peace, and nope, not a single period of peace to see. What about the other pieces of the prophecy? Has a great country in the north of Europe, now Protestant, been converted to Catholicism? No. No country in Europe today, no country in Northern Europe that was very Protestant in the 1840s and 50s is more Catholic today than it was back then, really. I guess that you can say that some popes have been persecuted since the 1850s, and you can definitely say that France lost its faith. So even though I understand France to be like 60% Catholic today by self-identification, I think it's only like 5% of French people are Catholics who attend church every Sunday. So Our Lady does get like a 50% on Maximin's prophecies. But of course, proving just one of them wrong should exclude this apparition from, being a real apparition. Now let's do Melanie's secret. Our Lady of La Salette's secret to Melanie goes like this. The time of God's wrath has arrived. If, when you say to the people what I have said to you so far, and what I will still ask of you to say, if after that they do not convert, if they do not do penance, and they do not cease working on Sunday, if they continue to blaspheme the holy name of God, in a word, if the face of the earth does not change, God will be avenged against the people ungrateful and slave of the demon. My son will make his power manifest. Paris, the city soiled by all kinds of crimes, will perish infallibly. Marseille will be destroyed in a little time. When these things arrive, the disorder will be complete upon the earth. The world will be given up to its impious passions. The Pope will be persecuted from all sides. They will shoot at him. They will want to put him to death, but no one will be able to do it. The Vicar of God will triumph again this time. The priests and the sisters and the true servants of my son will be persecuted, and several will die for the faith of Jesus Christ. A famine will reign at the same time. After all of these things will arrive, many will recognize the hand of God on them. They will convert and do penance for their sins. A great king will go up on the throne and will reign a few years. Religion will reflourish and spread all over the world, and there will be a great abundance. The world, glad not to be lacking nothing, will fall again in its disorders, will give up God, and will be prone to its criminal passions. Among God's ministers and the spouses of Jesus Christ, there will be some who go astray, and that will be the most terrible. Lastly, hell will reign on earth. It will be then that the Antichrist will be born of a sister. But woe to her, many will believe in him, because he will claim to have come from heaven. Woe to those who will believe him. That time is not far away. Twice 50 years will not go by. My child, you will not say what I have just said to you. You will say it to nobody. You will not say if you must say it one day, and you will not say what that it concerns. Finally, you will say nothing anymore until I tell you to say it. So, Paris and Marseille will be destroyed. Jimmy Akin makes the point that since France was taken out so quickly during World War II, it was actually spared from the worst of the bombing. So, Paris made it out less bombed than, London or Berlin. A French king has not risen up since the 1850s, much less a French king that has converted France to Catholicism, and it definitely hasn't spread Catholicism all over the world through this French monarch. The Antichrist hasn't risen up either. That should be fairly uncontroversial. I don't think that any Catholics think that the Antichrist arose sometime between 1850 and 2000. And all of this was actually in a different time frame than Maximin's secret. Maximin's secret said before the year 2000. Melanie's secret said that it should happen within twice 50 years or 100 years. So 100 years after 1846 is 1946. 1946 is just after the end of World War II. Both of these prophecies had large elements in it that just plain old did not come true. I think that alone is good reason to suspect that this is not an authentic apparition. The second reason that I would like to present as a reason to suspect that La Salette is not authentic is something referred to as the Ars Incident. Ars being a place in France, and when Ars comes to mind, I think a lot of Catholics will think of the Curé des Ars, Saint John Marie Vianney. John Vianney is actually my confirmation name. I didn't actually know this before Jimmy Akin's episode, but Maximin, when he was 15, so about 4 or 5 years after the apparition, I believe, Maximin actually visited Saint John Vianney to talk about the apparition. I'm going to play something from Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World that accounts the Ars incident, and then I'm also going to do a little bit of reading from Wikipedia.
That's a reference to a time when Maximin met St. John Vianney, the Curé d'Ars, in 1850. He was 15 years old at the time, and he had a couple conversations with St. John Vianney, and the saint thought that Maximin admitted to him that he had lied.
Okay, so St. John Vianney thinks that Maximin confessed to him that he had not actually seen any apparition. Now, Jimmy's going to go on to explain why he said that St. John Marie Vianney thought that he heard this stuff, and I myself am a little bit unsure of how deep this goes. I'm going to let Jimmy explain for another minute, and then I'm going to read from Wikipedia.
About seeing the Virgin Mary in 1846. That was apparently Vianney's impression of what Maximin said to him. He was reportedly hard of hearing at this point. He wasn't completely deaf, but he was somewhat hard of hearing. And Maximin later said that he had admitted to the saint that he lied on other occasions, but not about the apparition. And that Vianney misunderstood what he was saying. He thought the admission that he had lied about other things as a boy meant that he had lied about this, and he didn't say that.
Jimmy does go on to say that St. John Vianney did actually wind up accepting La Salette as being a authentic, although he seemed to have some pretty serious reservations about that later in life. I'm not entirely sure about that. And the reason I say that is because of this work. There is something called Vie de Curé des Ars, which was published by Abbé Alfred Monin in Paris in 1861. On pages 281 to 283 of that work, there is recorded an interview when Abbé Alfred Monin was talking to John Vianney, and the abbé says, Father, are you sure that you heard well what Maximin said to you? And St. John Vianney says, oh, very sure. There are indeed some who wanted to say that I was deaf. What didn't they say? It seems to me that this is not how one defends the truth. And earlier in here, John Vianney specifically says that he tells Maximin, you have to confess this if you lied. And Maximin says, I would like to make a general confession and then enter a religious house. So if John Vianney recounted an actual confession, he said to Maximin, you have to confess this. And then Maximin was like, okay, will you hear my confession? And so John Marie Vianney did hear his confession. That seems like a really weird thing. I think that Maximin really did repent. And then I think that he realized that he had nothing else. And Jimmy Akin does a really good job in his episode talking about how, the weird lives that Melanie and Maximin led after. But Maximin was essentially a homeless alcoholic for a long time. And so I think that he regretted confessing because he realized that he's got nothing if he can't kind of sell the whole secret from La Salette. Maximin used the secret from La Salette to get invited to fancy parties where he could drink fancy wine and stuff like that. And it's well documented that he really liked wine. But it seems to me like Maximin confessed to Saint John Marie Vianney that he lied about the apparition. Based on the fact that the prophecies didn't come true, I think that's likely. And the third reason that we can consider for being a reason to think that this isn't an authentic apparition is that the two seers were never canonized. Melanie and Maximin were never canonized. Jimmy Akin does a really good job covering this, so I'm not going to dwell here long. But La Salette is super unique among Marian apparitions in as much as the seers were never canonized and at this point likely never will be. At Fatima, all three children were canonized. Not just Sister Lucia, but her cousins Francisco and Jacinta as well. From Guadalupe, Juan Diego was canonized. From Lourdes, St. Bernadette Subaru was canonized. But Melanie and Maximin have not been canonized and likely never will. The official church approval of this apparition came while Maximin and Melanie were both still alive in, I believe, 1851. Now that we know that the prophecies haven't come true, now that we know about the Ars Incident, I don't think that the Catholic Church wants to approve this apparition any more than it already has. And the church the church never goes back and takes away approval after it's been given. So they haven't. The church has not taken away approval from La Salette. But I think the church would be well served if it did. Okay. Everything that I said here was stuff that Jimmy Akin already said. Just go watch Mysterious World episode 60. Seriously. Jimmy does a better job than I do discussing all of this. But I did mention that there was maybe one thing that I could add. And that would be something that Jimmy didn't touch on a lot. And that would be this apparition is super popular, especially among trad Catholics. Why? Well, it's probably not surprising why, right? I mean, the Pope falls into apostasy, a French monarch rises up and spreads Catholicism around the world, a famously Protestant country in Northern Europe converts to Catholicism. That's probably going to be Germany or England. Either way, a huge win for Catholicism. I mean, it's a trad Catholic dream. I mean, seriously, look at these videos. Look at this video from The Remnant. It is about Our Lady of La Salette, and it is just very, very positive about the whole thing. It's, to be honest, it kind of just waxes on about how evil the modernists are. My favorite part about this video is about the 4-minute mark where the remnant is talking about these American Tradcath pilgrims to La Salette, and they pray prayers written by Bishop Vigano. It's super weird. Let's listen.
There on that mountaintop, using a prayer composed for the occasion by Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, they spoke on behalf of their countrymen. They prayed on behalf of their countrymen, and they consecrated themselves, their families, and their country to Our Lady of La Salette. They invited the world.
So that's it. I mean, like it's this whole video is just kind of like, hey, look, this is great, and we need to remember the words of Our Lady of La Salette, and that's it. There's like no talk at all about how like this apparition like definitely did not happen. There's no talk at all about the failed prophecies or anything like that. And that's not the only video. It's not just the remnant. Here's a video from Sensus Fidelium talking about Our Lady of La Salette. Now, this one's an hour long, and go ahead and listen to this one too. This one is kind of weird, though. The actual video just tries to make excuses for why the prophecies haven't come true yet. Because you have to understand that Our Lady was just kidding about these prophecies coming true by 1950 or 2000. And it just says that Maximin's consistency, the fact that he never wavered his whole life, is proof that this is authentic. Let me play that part for you because I find it kind of weird.
Neither of them variated. Even though they were a bit flighty, would do strange things, when it came to the message, they were always accurate, always repeated the same thing. And Maxim would almost like go into another state of mind.
Always repeating the same thing, always accurate, except for that whole time that he confessed to St. John Marie Vianney that he didn't see anything. And then you look at the comments under this video, right? Like take a look at this one. I truly believe, without a doubt, Our Lady of La Salette, please help us. These are not like the words of people who are applying any kind of like skeptical mindset at all. It's just, it's weird, right? It's weird. And we'll do one more video too. So this one actually comes from Anthony from the Return to Tradition podcast. And interestingly, in this one, Anthony goes on to share some conspiracy theories from Malachi Martin and Gregory Hess. If you don't know who they are, we won't get into it in this podcast, but it's enough to say that Malachi Martin is like a trad Catholic conspiracy theorist. Anyway, he winds up sharing stuff from Hess, and Hess is saying that the real La Salette secrets were never revealed. Let's listen to him.
The line that was censored was that Our Lady said that in the coming century or the 20th century, that I don't remember. I remember literally the quotation, there will be deux papes vermoulus, en français. 2 worm-ridden popes.
Okay, so Hess makes the argument that the real secrets were never revealed, but he does know that one of them was that there would be 2 worm-ridden popes in some century that he couldn't remember. It's just a conspiracy theory is all it is. And here's the thing, too. Anthony, later on in this video, goes on to express skepticism about Malachi Martin and friends. But he says that the Vatican certainly tried to hide evidence. Let's see that.
I don't agree that you must believe that. We are talking about private revelation here and is open to a lot of interpretation. My other issue with that is that Father Malachi Martin was a world-class Jesuit-trained translator back when that meant something, and had been used by John the 23rd for that purpose, and he assisted at Vatican II as a translator. He was one of the skilled periti at the council. And that's why I take issue with not trusting him on the translation of this. But what is indisputable is that Rome hid part of the message of La Salette, and did so during the reign of Leo XIII, one of my favorite popes. Why? Probably.
So, yeah, Anthony says that, like, the Vatican tried to hide La Salette, over 100 years ago. And sure, I guess, maybe. But that's very different than the claims that the message is still being hidden. I think that we just have no evidence that the message is still being hidden because we have the original documents now. We have them. We have found them in the Vatican archive. The Remnant, Sensus Fidelium, and Return to Tradition all cover La Salette mostly positively, holding this to be an authentic apparition. And then they even spin off conspiracies in order to hold on to the apparition. Why are they so keen on preserving La Salette? Well, I think that there's a few reasons. First, and I think I've said this before too, but La Salette is the rad trad dream. Worm-ridden popes, a French monarch, mass conversions to Catholicism, the Antichrist, and the end times. La Salette has it all. So of course a trad would love it if this one was authentic. So trads will give La Salette like a huge benefit of the doubt in spite of all the evidence against it. I also think that some trads, some, not all, some, secretly hope for these terrible things to happen. In the same way that like a prepper secretly hopes that the world really does end. Like, and let me be clear, I don't think that they actually hope that it happens, but they just daydream about being able to say, I told you so. And so I think that these like rad trad La Salette types are just like the preppers of the Catholic world. Second, I think that some of the radder and tradder Catholics are just super uncomfortable with any approved Marian apparition being inauthentic. Yes, of course, they will always say, this is private revelation. You don't have to believe it. But then they go naming all their chapels after these private revelations. Imagine attending a chapel named Our Lady of La Salette Chapel and then believing that Our Lady of La Salette was a false apparition. That would be like a little weird, right? I think it would be a little weird. And lastly, I think it's just part of the culture. I know that asking the kinds of Catholics that I grew up with, to actually consider that La Salette is not authentic would be met with like a blank face, an assertion that nobody needs to believe it anyway. So I'm just going to keep on praying to La Salette. It's like they almost don't even care if it's true or not because they don't have to believe that it's true. And so then they're just like, yeah, I mean, I'm just not going to look into it. I'm just going to assume it's true. I know I don't have to believe it's true, but so what? Like, let's not even do any research because I don't have to believe that it's true, but I'm going to believe that it's true anyway. And I think that's just like an epistemology thing where it's like, I don't think that you should like be praying to inauthentic apparitions. It just seems like weird to me. Like I would want to know, but maybe that's just my personality type. And that's why I say I think it's a cultural thing. Like I think that like these pious legends are just kind of part of Catholic culture. I mean, certainly pious legends are part of Catholic culture, right? I mean, the pious legends started like in the 2nd century, right? With like the Gospel of Thomas and stuff like that. So if some of these Marian apparitions are pious legends, so what? I mean, I care, but I just don't think that everyone does. And that's fine, I guess. I just think it's a little weird. By the way, everybody, I did all of this research about La Salette, virtually all of it coming from Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World episode 60. And so I sent an email to Jimmy Akin just to say thank you for putting that episode out because I think that Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World episode 60 demonstrates Jimmy's commitment to the truth. If Jimmy was interested in just towing the party line, so to speak, he would make the same kind of video that Return to Tradition, Sensus Fidelium, The Remnant, he would make that kind of video. But he didn't. He made a skeptical video about an approved Marian apparition. I think that proves that Jimmy Akin cares a whole lot about what is true. And I don't think that he would have made that kind of video if he didn't. And so I just sent an email to him saying, thank you for putting that out. This is incredible. I'm just so happy that Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World exists. And then I added a half-hearted, like, by the way, I'd love to have you as a guest on the show if you ever wanted to come on. Not expecting Jimmy to say yes. Jimmy Akin is like the busiest Catholic apologist that I know, probably. Like that, he does Catholic Answers like, what, 2 or 3 times a week or something, on top of all the different debates that he does. Did not expect him to say yes. He did. I'm having Jimmy Akin on for an episode of Conversations with Catholics in about 2 weeks. So that's going to be Wednesday, December 6th, 2023. we're going to take Q&A. So if you guys want to be there, and if you want to put me on the spot, or if you want to put Jimmy on the spot, which, by the way, I think is impossible to do after all of the open forums that he has done on Catholic Answers, you can do so. So I hope to see a lot of you guys there. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm super thankful that we have Jimmy Akin, and like in particular, I'm super thankful that we have Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World, because I think that is like the wealth of information that is available in Jimmy Akin's Mysterious World is just insane. And I just wanted to say, thank you, Jimmy Akin, and I look forward to talking to you more in just a few short weeks. Thanks, everybody.